G'day everyone and welcome to the GameDay Squad Aussie Rules Fantasy Show. I'm Pitty and alongside Haz, we are the Fantasy Bros. We've partnered with GameDay Squad this season to bring you everything you need to know to succeed in GDS Aussie Rules. And to help me preview a big round 11 is Bales from the AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Bales, how are you, mate? And thanks for jumping on the live preview show after we decided to manage you in Geelong fashion late last week.
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, sorry, I just thought I just got back for the time ticket, so people probably just saw me walking in the door and sitting down. But no, going well after a tough week for any of those that follow along the AFL fantasy point of view. Not a great week. GameDay Squad a little bit better, but still a couple of frustrating players that are bringing that squad down, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. And probably frustrating from the players we've picked, but also frustrating from the point of view of some other players we didn't pick who tortured some of the ones that we did pick. So it was a tough week, that's for sure. And it's great to see a few regulars in the chat as well. We've got Nate Daddies there. G'day, Nate Daddies. Thanks for tuning in. Again, another big week coming up. So we can't wait to get stuck into it and preview it all for you guys. But before we do, just make sure any new coaches, make sure you've used that code there on screen, FBAR26, when you sign up to GameDay Squad. If you haven't already, get yourself 3 9-player common packs in doing so, and you can use that to get your contender team started. And as we've mentioned before, it is never a bad time to get involved in GameDay Squad. If you are struggling on your other fantasy platforms, jump aboard now and you can reset your team each week. I took some satisfaction in clearing all of my squads at the end of last week, and I think I have done for the past few weeks, to be honest. But, mate, let's get into it. Hey, around the grounds, how'd we go? Round 10. Before we get into our stars and scars, just kick us off, mate. In terms of your competitions, how'd you fare across the leaderboards?
Yeah, so I think it was, again, I've had a few of these weeks lasted a month or so, just a few middling weeks in terms of rankings. So I think my best finish was in the under 22s comp, which I finished 26. So no top 20 finishes, which is a little bit frustrating. But 35th in Classic, which is the one I take serious, like the most serious, and 5th for the season. So I've been hovering between 3rd and 7th or 8th for the better part of probably 5-6 weeks. So really trying to crack into that top 4 and obviously have the better pick for the prize card draft, hopefully at the end of the year. And then, I think it's Challenger 79th, Champion 72nd, Stats Labs 30th, and then Sunday Showdown 67th. So not too great in the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. It would have been nice to have had a good week in that one to come on here, but unfortunately a little bit of quieter one there.
You should have a ticket too, as far as I'm aware.
Well, I should. It was I don't know if I'd still get it, considering that I came first in that week. That was the week that it was refreshed, where it didn't count the Monday one. So I'm hoping I still get in, but who knows?
Oh, it's a tough competition. Hey, like it's enjoyable though. Like you're trying to get your best squad together, and you're picking blokes you probably don't normally play in any other competition. But I had a very similar week to you, mate. It was just pretty mediocre all across the board, to be honest. And what did you say? Was that 35th? You said you came in Classic, was it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I was just around you there, mate. I was 32nd, or according to the app, 32nd. But no, it's,
I got that when I said 72nd on the app. It says 70, like 72. Like it's a little bit of a bug there. So how many points did you score in Classic? What was the difference between us?
2,960 was
3
my points in the end.
Only 3 points there. So.
Again, I think we're probably picking similar players, and they probably all let us down. We're going to fire a cannon off in a sec and just absolutely roast a few players that we picked. But yeah, mediocre across the leaderboards, mate. 23rd in Challenger was probably my best. However, like the key takeaway there, I was so surprised seeing the rankings that my overalls didn't slip. I actually went up in my overall ranking in Classic. So
I think I went one spot, 2 spots as well.
It's just funny. It just shows that probably everyone else is in a similar position to us, and sometimes in fantasy, you're never doing as bad as what you think you are, and then when you think you're going well, you're probably not doing as well as what you think. It's just one of those cliches we like to say, and still moved up in the overall rankings for Sunday Showdown. Again, bit of a mediocre week there. So that was my theme for this week, mate. And his best finish was 16th in Challenger. He also snuck into the top 20 in 2 other competitions, in the Sunday Showdown and the Contender competition too. So he was a bit better than us this week, mate. But as you've said before, we want to be pushing those top 10 finishes as well. That's what we like to see. And well, obviously the top 20 as well. But mate, in terms of our stars and our scars, we had some huge performances. And I think if you missed out on a couple of key performers, I think you fell behind pretty quickly. And I think that would be the theme across all fantasy platforms this week for Aussie Rules. But, mate, I'll kick us off. In terms of our stars, I had John Noble as my star. What an absolute weapon. He's been in incredible form. Another 150-plus score. 154, that was unreal. That really helped my my classic squad in particular. And in fact, I played him across all 3 standard competitions. So I was very happy with that. And Brodie Grundy has a star with that massive 184. If you didn't have Brodie Grundy, it's fair to say your rankings probably would have taken a bit of a hit this week, I think. Who's your star, mate?
Yeah, so my star, who's going to get that this week? Few big performances there. I'll obviously probably would have given it to Grundy as well. I'll go someone different though. I'll probably go for. I reckon I'll go for Baz. I reckon Baz gets it for me. Just continues to get it done. Obviously, there's a little bit of a question mark on him this week, but last week obviously going pretty big. Don't have the exact score in front of me here. I'm just looking at my squad from last week. But yeah, he went.
What was it 150 from memory?
Yeah, I think it was
against the Lions.
Yeah,
more than that, 185.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was a tiny bit more. It's like 150 and then
150 was the week before, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, for him to go that big, I was just annoyed that I went from a platinum down to a gold just when I was sort of
that's right
restructuring some rarity around the squad, but should have certainly kept the platinum there, so he'll get the star for me this week.
Yeah, he was unreal. And while you think about your scars there, mate, we'll get us started. Had some shocking picks, and they probably all came from the forward line, I reckon. Toby Green has a scar. He was one of mine as well, and so was Brad Hill. So we both those two were both our scars, I reckon. They were shocking. So they scored 103 points between them. So that was a 50 from Toby Green and a 53 from Brad Hill. That's disgusting in our forward line. We put Bradley Hill as a plug and play last week. He'd been so consistent for this year, and in a forward line where we like that consistency as well. We thought he was a good pick, but he's come straight out of there, and we don't like that, that's for sure. So we learnt a lot about our forward line last week, and they're proving to be difficult to pick sometimes. Some other players lucky. Actually, no, I might do that after. I'll keep that in the chamber. I'll let you give your scar first, just in case you mentioned someone who I was about to rattle off.
Yeah. Well, I had both Green and Brad Hill in my forward line, so that was great. So yeah, not too fun. I probably should have given a star shout out because he probably doesn't get too many awards because he doesn't score as big. But Justin McInerney, just a shout to him. He's been really solid this year. One of those forwards that's been getting it done. In terms of my scar, it can only be one. It can only be one. I mentioned this. If anyone listens to the AFL Fantasy Fanatics pod, I went through a bit of this on Sunday night, but just give him another drive-by. I'm going to give the actual, the scar to Mini McWalter for this, right?
Yeah.
So he uses a player that hasn't tagged before, and he's been really good at finding the ball and just being a real talking about Milan Murdoch here, being that link up between the forward line and the midfield, getting up, getting those tails, getting those touches. But no, he goes, let's use him as a tagger. And let's send him to Lockie Whitfield, who, if people aren't following along, Lockie Whitfield's my scar this week because not only did I have him captain in other formats, I put salary on top of him here. I'm pretty sure I had a gold Lockie Whitfield this week. What I could have had a bronze Whitfield and put that salary on top of Baz, which I didn't have it through that, but I could have just put it back on Baz. But Whitfield, I don't even know what he scored. Probably was it 67 or 68 in GameDay Squad? I think it was
74.
Yeah, 74. So a little bit more than that. So just
not good enough.
He hasn't been tagged all year, and I thought we were past Whitfield tags. I thought we were Callahan's the guy. We'll tag him. Maybe Toby Green as well, but no, we're let's take Whitfield. Let's take, and also tagged Callahan as well, who luckily I didn't have, but probably I would have picked if it wasn't for a couple other players I had in instead. But yeah, tough week.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon if Lockie Ash, I think he probably escaped that tag because he's been playing a bit more through the midfield. I felt surely that if he's behind the footy, he's probably the one you tag because he's got that run and drive of halfback, and I didn't expect that. I didn't see it coming, and yeah, I think I played a platinum of him in Classic, so I got absolutely torched for that. I thought he was going to have a nice big week for us, and unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Just one thing, I know the coaches don't care about our game day squads or our fantasy teams or whatever, right? But when you look at it from a West Coast point of view, Ash isn't there, so you just shut Whitfield down, and then their halfback run's gone, and then you shut Callahan down to the midfield, so their run's completely gone. So football point, great. Fantasy point, no, we don't want this.
Yeah, exactly. They don't see it the way we see it, and Mate, they have an interesting matchup this week as well. We'll talk about it a bit later on when they come up against Collingwood too. So there's a few players who play behind the footy, and we've obviously got Nick Dacos there as well too, who loves to find it himself. So if they can roll out a little double tag just like they did last weekend, it's something we'll mention later on. But a few other players, mate, who are lucky to escape that graphic on screen. Nick Newman, he was very lucky. He saved himself late with some junk time points. I reckon that would have been probably 20 Game Day Squad points late in the game. I think by the time I turned it off and stopped watching, he was on about 71. That was about halfway through that last quarter. And then I looked at the end of the game, he was on 98, and I thought, wow, he must have really junked that up late.
You got about three plus sevens in the space of probably 40, 50 seconds. Like that was really what sort of bumped that score up. But just all the other guys, it was like Florent, and Billy Wilson and oh, don't get me started, Lockie Cowan. Jeez, far out. If people want like me to go on a rant about Lockie Cowan, like the guy gets the ball and kicks long, never looks for a short target. So, but yeah, we could go on a rant about that. But yeah, the Carlton defense is all over the place. Give it to Nick Newman, your best ball user.
I know, 100%, and that's why I picked him last week, and it just nothing seemed to work. Obviously, Luke Jackson, he's lucky to escape that 82 from him. Connor McDonald, I picked. I don't know. Again, I felt that MCG, back at the MCG, hadn't gone below 100 playing against Melbourne. I thought he'd get his marking game back, and he really struggled. At 85 is not the worst you're going to have by any means, but still disappointing nonetheless, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
Now, just before we move on as well, got a few more people in the chat as well. Thanks to everyone for tuning in too. So Arnie Bulger, g'day Arnie Bulger. Great to see you back there again as well. Izzy's tuned in. How you going? We got Maxie Hansen in the chat as well. Hope you're doing well too, mate. And Mian as well. Mian's tuning in too. Great to see you there, mate. And can't wait to see what you think of some of our picks. I know that he jumps in my chats and we chat a bit about our squads each week too. So hopefully you have a good week there, Mian. Fingers crossed for you, mate. But looking at our round 11 fixtures there, Bales, we've got a few big games this week. So obviously our Thursday and Friday night fixtures, those primetime fixtures, we've got your boys there up against the Hawks at UTAS Stadium. So that's going to be played down in Launceston there in Tasmania.
Should be at the
It should be, shouldn't it? It's going to be a cold night down there too, I think, about 3 degrees from memory last time I checked, or thereabouts. So how do you reckon your boys will go in the cold?
I'm feeling a little bit better after teams, seeing Thilthorpe and Archie back in, and then for Hawthorn not having Barras or Gunston. That's, I guess, a positive, like the two key pillars for them. But again, I think, funny enough, the last 3 games down at Launceston, funny enough, Crows always get Hawthorn in Launceston. I think we've played them once over in Melbourne in the last 4 years, and it was at the MCG where we got battered. But I think it's like 3 years ago, Hawthorn by 3 points. 2 years ago, Hawthorn by us by 3 points. Last year, Hawthorn by 3 points. So going on trend, we should win a close game by 3 points in this one. So
yeah, well, let's see. Hopefully, it's a good game anyway, mate, and
hope so.
Hopefully some good scoring around. That's what we want to see as well, of course. Obviously, that's what do we have there? The Friday night fixture as well. We've got a double header again on Friday night. So we've got one at the MCG there. That's our Tigers up against our Bombers. And then we've obviously got the Dockers there up against the Saints. That's over at Optus there too. So they're our primetime fixtures, 6 teams to be picking from when building your primetime squad. The Saturday slate, we have the Kangaroos up against the Suns at Marvel Stadium, the Cats up against the Swans at GMHBA, the Pies up against the Eagles there. That's going to be at the MCG. We have Scott Pendlebury breaking the games record there too. So that's going to be a massive game for...
Just one point on this, right? This is a football thing, but even for gamers, right? For coaches that want to watch, right? How on earth can you have Geelong and Sydney, a massive clash with 2 top teams at the same time as the Pendlebury record-breaking game at the MCG? It's like, we know the fixturing is being bad all year, right? But this is like having Hawthorn and Adelaide Thursday night, cold weather down in Tasmania on a Thursday night, and then having this clashing. Like, I want to watch like Baz if he plays, obviously, and Grundy and guys like that. But then I want to watch, because Grundy will likely be sign up a lot of salary on his GameDay Squad. But I want to watch Pendles break the record. Like, it's just, I can't believe that. Like, anyway, yeah.
There's a couple other milestones in that game too, I believe. Roscoe mentioned before, he said it's going to be Nick Dacos' 105th game or something like that, so they might celebrate that as well. Hopefully he fills his boots.
Houston's 200th as well, so he's getting no chat this week, and Harley Reid's 50th as well, so it's like a few milestones.
A few going around.
It doesn't matter when it's Pendles breaking the record.
Yeah, it's all about Pendles this week, and see if you can sneak him into one of your squads to celebrate all the good times maybe as well. We've got Port up against the Blues as well that night too. So on Sunday, we've got our 4 teams, 2 games. That's going to be our Giants up against the Lions there. That's at NG Stadium. And we have the Dogs up against the Demons as well. So that'll be a cracking game as well. The Demons have been in great form. So that's going to be played at Marvel Stadium. Any closing thoughts just on those fixtures there, mate? Because in terms of the ones we'll target, we'll sort of mention that as we go throughout the pod because it might vary by line potentially.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you quickly, what's if you had to pick one game of those 9 that's your favourite for fantasy this week, where would it be? I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I'm partly leaning a little bit towards that Essendon Richmond game. A couple of Bombers boys, I think, could go
the one I was
absolutely
looking
massive.
at. Yeah, and I think, we talked about Jaden Short last week as a defender option. You're going to see him on our next slide once we pull that up, and he's one I'm liking in that matchup. There's obviously going to be, we've got Archie Roberts, who's going quite well. We've got Jacob Farrow in terms of our under-22s back there.
That Merritt.
I'm liking a Zach Merritt, absolutely. Yeah. If you want to go a bit pottish and maybe go another midfielder, you maybe could, but that's looking like one I sort of can see as being something that we might get some good fantasy points out of. The Collingwood and West Coast one was going to be one I was going to look at, and it's going to be an interesting one we talk about, especially given the changes we saw last week. And I think there could be some points even in the Bulldogs and the Demons game potentially too. So yeah, there's a few that I'm really liking this week, and it's we'll see a few of those reflected in our squads for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to it.
But mate, looking at our defenders, for round 10, you can see there on screen we have our plug and plays. Of course, we've got Sinclair, Ash, Witt, Zorko, Roberts. Wang is still injured, so we probably can't wait to have him back in. That would be awesome. And you can see our 3 options there on screen. We've got Jaden Short as another option again. He was a bit disappointing last week. He sort of, powered through that first half, getting to, somewhere between 70 and 80 GDS points from memory at halftime, and then he just cruised home to, I think, 105 in the end. So disappointing from him, but he's still an option again this week against the Bombers at the MCG on Friday night. I think one of the Pies boys you could definitely be looking at, whether that's a Jake Hoss or a Houston, we'll chat about soon, and a Cal Wilkie too, who obviously got injured 2 weeks ago and had spent most of his time off the ground. Disappointing score. Comes back last week and just reminds us why he's so good. 130 GDS points and just a genuine option for our backlines, I think. But before we talk about that, mate, Lockie Ash, let's have a quick chat about him. In terms of that role, he is playing some more midfield time. He had 46% CBAs last week. It was up a bit from the week before as well. It's just looking like, that midfield role potentially may not be yielding the sort of fantasy scores that we like to see when he's playing behind the footy. Coming up against Brisbane this week, who aren't the best matchup for opposition, well, actually just opposition in general, to be honest. If he's playing through the midfield, I like him a lot less. Is this a week where we could maybe look at not playing him in our back line? Is this a week where there might be a few other options ahead of him?
Potentially. I still look at Ash and go, well, his lowest score for the year was 100, which he scored all the way back in opening round. So he's still been someone that has been incredibly consistent throughout the whole season. Obviously, yes, he went 165, 159. Was it like he went a stretch of really from what was it, round 1 right through to round 7, where he didn't go under 122 points, right? So you're getting those ceiling scores, which is great. Last 3 weeks, so 117, 109, 117. So they've been a little bit lower, but he's still going near 120, even in the midfield role. Obviously, Brisbane this week's a bit of a tougher matchup, but I feel like with a lot of the defenders this year, besides the plug and plays, the other defenders have been susceptible to just dropping an 80, 90 score out of nowhere and sort of letting you down. Whereas I feel like Ash is still someone that is consistent. He's going to be highly selected as well. So if he scores just a sort of low 100, everyone's going to have him, but he's got the ability to go 120, 130. So I still feel like he's still in the plug and plays each week, but I think he's the guy that's now gone behind a few where you don't put, well, particularly this week, you don't put any salary on him. If that means like classic and maybe contender, maybe just keep a bronze in there for the time being. And for those playing uppers, maybe just play a gold or silver or whatever you can. So I think, just less salary, but I still think he's in there for me, even though it's a tough matchup.
Yeah, something that Haz and I have been speaking about, that's for sure. And if we could maybe do that, but it is the safer play. And third most popular, but third most selected across all standard comps. And yes, it's early in the week. We know that can change by the end, but that's been consistent across the season. So if you do choose to fade, you fade at your own risk, that's for sure. And then obviously Whitfield as well, just mentioning he was tagged by Milan Murdoch last week up against the Lions. He had 137 on them against them last season, so that was in round 14, so he should bounce back. We would be expecting that for sure. But in terms of the other options made, a short, one of the Collingwood boys or a Cal Wilkie, has one or more of them made their way into your squads this week?
Yeah, well, I've been tossing up Short versus Josh Dacos at the moment. I am just a little bit worried about Josh Dacos possibly getting some attention, right? We didn't think Whitfield was going to get any attention last week, but Milan Murdoch did go to Lockie Whitfield last week. So I guess the question, what you'd be thinking at the moment is, do you think if they're going to tag, so Hoff and Murdoch, so apparently West Coast of Geelong now, apparently they're running multiple tags now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Or
where do
North
the
Melbourne.
two go, right? Because Hoff can follow Nick Dacos around if he goes forward, if he stays in the midfield. But you feel like Milan Murdoch's almost got the pace to run with him, and he did a good,
Yeah.
as much as we hate it, he did a good job on Lockie Whitfield last week and didn't give him any space. So it's like, does one go to one Dacos, one go the other? Because you'd think if you're playing Collingwood, the Dacos brothers are probably the two that sort of stand out, right? So maybe if you're playing a Collingwood defender, is it Houston, right? That is probably where I'm sort of leaning at the moment, because Josh Dacos as well. Like we were talking about this on our pod on Sunday, but like Josh Dacos hasn't really set the world on fire as of late, just not really getting any of those big scores. I just wanted to pull his his last few scores up.
I got his last three
So,
if you want there, mate. He's had 95, 110, and 97.
and like we're talking about, Lockie Ash has been midfield and been little bit unders, right? But he's still going over 100 and getting a couple of 117s, right? Whereas Josh Dacos is even hitting triple figures in GameDay Squad, right? And we know we get more points for kicks and stuff, so you'd think he'd be almost guaranteed to get that most weeks. So just, a little bit of a worry with Josh Dacos, and still probably might get some attention. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Like, if we talk about Josh Dacos, we'll stay on that little theme there for a second. The other thing we're going to keep in mind with his scoring this year is that he has put up some pretty good ceiling scores. Like, he's had, last 3 weeks, yes, disappointing, 95, 110, 97, like we mentioned before, but he's also had 3 scores above 140 plus. So it does show like he's got an elite ceiling on his day. And I just feel like this could be a matchup where he hits that ceiling pretty easily. But yeah, it is just the question of will he cop attention. If we look at who, like the Eagles went out of their way last week to say, right, let's shut down the ball movement from the Giants from the back half, and we're going to do that by tagging Lockie Whitfield. So he's their key ball distributor out of there while Ash is sort of moving a bit more through the midfield. I think that's a Dan Houston. Like, Dan Houston is that role for them at the moment. He's the one with that lethal kick. Is there any chance they may go to him with that similar thinking to last week? Like, it worked really well shutting down their ball movement. We might try and do the same with Houston. I don't know. Like, that's my only concern. I almost am tossing up which one could it be.
Is this just a case? Is this just a case of where we avoid both? We just don't.
Maybe.
Because like we got, like as I said, I'm tossing up Jaden Short at the moment with one of these two, and that's why I'm thinking, well, why don't I just play Jaden Short? It's at the MCG, it's against the Bombers, great matchup. Obviously, Richmond are obviously down to the bare bones in terms of their 26, right? I think they'd get very, very close. One more injury, and then they're getting top up players for emergency. So it's Short's going to have all the responsibility back there. I think this year as well, I don't know the exact stats if he has, but it looks like he's taking more kick-ins as well than in previous years. They've tended to use a lot of players, whereas I've seen him take a lot more of that responsibility. That might not be the case. It might just be every time I've seen a kick in or taken notice he has. I just want to have a quick look last week. So obviously we know if they get the kick-ins, right, it's a bonus 4 points as long as they take playing out of the square. Yeah, like last week, Jaden Short, 7 kick-ins, Miller 4, Vlosten 2. That was the 4. And I'll just check the week before as well. For Richmond, it was against the Crows. Kick-ins, Short had 4, Vlosten 4, Trezise 3, Trainer and Broad had 1. So this, and then Tom Brown. So I like to share it a bit, but still, Jaden Short's the number 1 kick-in taker. So I think that is also a good thing.
Yeah, I like a Jaden Short this week. I think out of those Collingwood defenders there, to tie that off like quite nicely, I think Dan Houston, keep in mind last week he had 67 points at halftime against the Swans, and they are that difficult matchup, and then only 10 points after that. He spent about 15 minutes on the bench in the third, and he can do that, but Jacobs can do that too at times. I feel like either one of them will often get caught on the bench.
Particularly in the game when there's some junk time passing around. It's always one of them. They're never both on the ground really to take advantage of that, which is a bit of a shame. And Houston did go missing after. I think he would have been on mid-70s at halftime last week, and I think he would have had sub 20 points in GameDay Squad in the second half and just went missing.
10. Yeah, and it's disappointing. So I think out of those two, like, Yeah, Josh Dacos is a risk of maybe copping attention from them, but he's got the ceiling, and I think he's the one I'd probably go for, maybe chasing that. He's hit, I think, around 170 was his highest so far this season, and yeah, three over 140. So I'd probably be chasing that personally, but it may be a question of if I'm not sure what the Eagles are going to do in terms of if they're going to send someone to him, then I might just potentially look at playing somebody else because you've got another two great options. We've just sort of touched on Jaden Short there, and you went through some of his kicking data, so he's a genuine option again. It's another great matchup this week against the Bombers. Second most GDS points they're allowing to opposition defenders this season. And last year he scored 130 GDS points against them, thanks to 25 disposals, 10 marks and a goal. Like, he's just been super consistent this season. And the Bombers are leaking points as well. So Whitfield had 151 on them, Wilmot 160. There's some massive scores to be had. So I think I'm probably not expecting that sort of score from Jaden Short. His form recently hasn't sort of shown that he can maybe hit those scores again this year. We'll have to see, but I think he should be a really good pick for sure.
Yeah, I like it. The other one there that's I want to get your thoughts on him this week is Cal Wilkie, because I'm a little bit nervous with this matchup because we see Wilkie, obviously he's very consistent every year, but I feel like of all the teams in the AFL at the moment, there are only a couple of teams that are running more than, say, 3 tolls, and Freo are one of them. And normally when that happens, that's where Wilkie has to play a little bit more accountable. So like you look at Freo this week, they'll have obviously Jackson the Ruck, who can also drift forward, but you've also got Mason Cox will be there, Josh Tracy, Jai Amos, and Pat Voss, right? So the 4 big boys down there. Wilkie's not going to just be able to play loose like he was, like even like last week against Richmond, right? That Richmond don't have a lot of tools, so he was able to sort of peel off and be that loose. And then even weeks before when they played Gold Coast, like they don't really play, like they had Walter and King up forward and like Jamara, but didn't like they've got enough. They had enough defenders that night to cover them. Whereas I think Freo, they're going to be stretched a bit. So that just. What are your thoughts? Have you got the same sort of flag, or are you still pretty happy with him because of how good he's been so far?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with him given his form this season. And I had this concern back in round 6 when they played your boys at Adelaide Oval. I thought that was going to be the concern, that he'd have to defend more than what he had done in previous weeks. Obviously, like Taylor Walker and Riley Thilthorpe. Yes, and it all came from he towed up Taylor Walker from memory. He can get it done in that one-on-one matchup. He can beat his opponent. He can drift off. Like, I've got so much confidence in what he can do that Freo matchup doesn't really concern me too much. I'm almost picking him out of that safety. It may not be a huge score, like a 150, 160.
A solid 110. Yep, just solid score.
To be saying that against the Crows, he had 154, and that was from 12 marks and 23 kicks, and so just absolutely dominant. And in terms of that as well, like the last 5 weeks, there's been some scores against Freo too that sort of give me something to be positive about. Like we had Archie Roberts had 124 from 6 marks, and Carl Amon 137 from 7 marks. And a Josh Battle, he also had a 124 from 12 marks too. And you'd probably say Battle plays a bit more of a role like Wilkie, that's similar to a Cal Wilkie than those other two. So I think for me, I'm probably not too concerned by that. And last season he had 99 on them from 11 marks and 144 the year before, or the game before, from 14 marks and 20 kicks. So I think, I think I'm not concerned by that at all. I was earlier this year and I learned my lesson. If you are concerned, maybe that's just lowering the salary potentially, but I think he's just another great shout this week for our defenders.
I currently don't have him though, because I've got one of the pods that we're about to talk about as well.
Oh, very nice. Can't wait to see which one you're thinking about. We've got a great comment there on screen too from Mian as well. We've had this great discussion. So Carl Amon, any love for him? He's been in great form. I think you can go there for sure against your boys there, mate, that matchup. I'll just double check our matchup data there too for our opposition defenders. Adelaide are a bit more of a neutral matchup. And if you're keen to look at a Hawthorn defender, I think Amon's a pretty good shout too. And Jarman Impey's been in good form as well. Both of those boys are just getting it done quietly.
Yeah, I feel like...
but a John Noble...
I feel like if you... So I was just going to say, if you feel like this week, I wouldn't be going Amon, just with I don't know, cold night and down Tassie, Thursday night. Just feel like he's not going to have a bigger score, but he's had a great run last 4 weeks, and he's going to have a great run for another 5 or so weeks after this week. So I think he's going to be someone we're going to be having a fair bit of discussion about over the next few weeks. But John Noble, not this week against North Melbourne. I'm pretty sure they'd be one of the tougher. Well, I think they were before last week the toughest matchup in all of fantasy in terms of they gave out the least amount of points for anyone. Last week they gave out a few, so they might be sort of 3rd or 4th now. They might have dropped a couple of spots, but you sort of think North at Marvel, you expect Gold Coast to win, but North will be pretty disappointed with how they played. You think that that's going to be pretty hot to start the game. And we have seen some of those big scores at halfback have been there in those Darwin games as well. So that's probably my pause of concern.
Even the round before that, round 8 as well. So he's had 154, 159 in his last 2. That's up in Darwin. And he had 178 the week before that.
Huge.
And so that was
Giants, I think.
Which one was that? Round
Giants,
8. Giants, and we know
it's same sort of weather, right? It was late. It was it was a Sunday night game, so similar weather. We do see a little bit more chipping in those games instead of going sort of back to forth like a basketball game, just to keep the players not sort of as fatigued late in the game. So I think he's an option for sure. Like you can't not go there. Right, he's been so good.
Yeah, and that's exactly the conversation Haz and I had. That's the same conclusion we came to, was that, yeah, like that Giant matchup too, just to touch on that, third best as well recently. So in the last 3 games, they are the third best matchup you can target for your opposition defenders. So I think with Johnny Noble, keep that in mind in his last 3. It's been positive matchups and at really favourable grounds for him. And this week, he's coming up against the toughest matchup for season to date for opposition defenders and the 4th most difficult in the past 3 games. At Marvel Stadium, for me, not smaller, but I'm happy to watch this week. I want to watch him, and if he can do it again, I'm pretty keen to jump on, and he can be someone we consider to play every single week. But yeah, if you want to go there off form, you're well justified given his recent weeks, but I'm happy to watch this week personally. Which pod are you looking at there, mate? Is it Bailey Dale or Jake Bowie?
Jake Bowie. So we've currently got sitting there. Yep. So doggies, you've probably got where do the dogs sit still in terms of matchups for defenders? Where are they sitting at the moment?
They are 4th best in the last 3 games, and then season to date they are the 3rd best. So yeah, a very good opposition matchup you can target. For
like even just looking to like last week, right? Like Ollie Florent went 149. Matt Carroll, who's a winger but does push into defence at times as well, 114. Lockie Cowan 103, Ollie Hollands 98, even Nick Newman, who we thought was disappointing, scored 98, and then Billy Wilson 90. So a lot of players going well and chipping around the back there. We know Dogs have always been a good matchup for defenders, and Jake Bowie's come back and he's just slotted in as almost as if he's just never left. He's always been there, right? He's like 120 in his first game, then a 109 last week in a tough matchup against Hawthorn as well, by the way. Like still to go well over ton. I know that they won, but Melbourne are playing great footy. Like the biggest sort of surprise packet, I think, this year in terms of how well they're playing. So I just think Bowie just gets it done, and he doesn't really have anyone there at the moment like Bailey Dale's got with like a Connor Buderick and guys like that back there stealing points off. So Bowie is the number one guy clearly back there for Melbourne. And in terms of like, again, kick-ins as well, Jake Bowie had 7. Jath and Tholstrup had 1 each. That's it. So Bowie is the number one guy for kick-ins. He's a general back there. He does everything. So I think he's a safe option, and I really like him this week and think he'll be a real pod to target. I don't think a lot of people go there just because they probably forgot about him a little bit, not playing. So I quite like him this week.
Yeah, I rate that. He's going to be my contender side. You'll see that for sure. And yeah, that's my point for him too, that market share of points available in that back line, just being that number one guy. He had 9 kick-ins the week before last as well against the Eagles.
We love to see one, that I think when teams go, yep, you're a guy taking kick-ins. Like Giants have got Whitfield, and like Melbourne have got Bowie, but other teams like Richmond are like, we don't care. Like West Coast, we've got like 3 guys. Like, but so it's like, guys, just do one, have one, so we know who the general is back there.
Exactly. And his kick to handball ratio is elite as well. So he's had 26 and 24 disposals in those 2 returns for 21 and 17 kicks respectively. So yeah, it is get the ball in his hands and he's our distributor. So I think, if that's a great matchup, he's ticking all the boxes this week as a point of difference, that's for sure. So I love that. You'll see him in my contender side. I'm not sure if I'm going to have him in Classic. Will you roll him out in a Classic, or are you going to maybe put him somewhere else?
No, I've got him in Classic. I've got him in the Sunday Showdown as well. So I've got him pretty much wherever he's available for me. So I'm pretty keen on him.
Loading
and I did
up.
say West Coast don't check ins. They've actually only got like 2. It's McCarthy, Lindsay. Sorry, I meant Essendon have got like 3 or 4 guys that go. But your thoughts on Dale? With Buderick back, his scores have been a little bit lower. So is that a bit of a concern for you, just with the ceiling sort of a little bit away?
It's a flag. It was Connor Buderick who struggled last week. He had 71, I think, from memory, or 74, somewhere around there. And it was Bailey Dale had 119 against that blue side, who we sort of flagged as being, just keep our eyes on that. It may not be the best matchup for opposition defenders. We spoke about that last week, and he still put up a 119, which is pretty solid. So he had 31 touches and 3 marks, which is
He's
pretty
only
good.
120
And he
with
took
only 3 marks is pretty good as well.
Exactly, yeah, and it's probably off the back of his kicking game there as well, to be honest. So the D's, they're actually a much better matchup this week for those dogs, and so they're giving up the 6th most GDS points to those opposite defenders. And there's been scores to a couple of those Hawks boys in Amon and Impey, 125, 116. No massive ceiling scores recently, but Dale should be a pretty solid option too. And we've got to keep in mind in our backline, we've got so many players who can put in our plug and plays, so you can sort of put it in each week that if we're talking about 3 options and looking for a couple other guys,
It's tough.
there's actually, exactly. It's just something to keep in mind. So if you're chasing a ceiling, or you want that guy who's maybe, I guess Bailey Dale is the one who does have a ceiling too, by the way. But a Jake Bowie's going to be the one who you go, he's got more of that market share than what Dale might have with a Connor Buderick. But again, he's such a good player there, Bailey Dale, that you can definitely be looking at him. He's had 5 tons in a row as well since round 5, and he's got that clear roll down there too, alongside a Connor Buderick. 25 disposals in each of those games. He's had 20 kicks in each of those too. So, yeah, he's one that we probably can't not talk about. And avoiding, we've just got there, don't chase last week's points for a Nick Blakey. He had that Collingwood matchup last week, 176 GDS points, which is massive, just behind Brodie Grundy, who had 183 as the highest. And we know that Collingwood are a positive matchup for opposition defenders. They face the Cats this week at GMHBA, so it will be tougher for them. They're the 5th hardest team, the Cats.
That I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. They put Mullen to Blakey, because can he follow Heaney and the forward line and be a good matchup? I think yes, still, but you sort of wondered they just put like an Atkins or an O'Connor. Actually, O'Connor probably matched up better to Heaney, and then Blakey might get Mullen, and then maybe do they send like Atkins to Warner? Like that could be sort of what they do, right? So I think the matchup and then possible tag is probably why I'd cross him off, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things to consider. Like when they've got weapons like that, the Cats, you're probably not looking too many at those Swans really when they're playing down there. So that's something, and it sort of rolls into our midfield discussion there made on screen. We've got our plug and plays. Heaney's a plug and play for the season, right? He's been so good. He's in incredible form. Even those games where we sort of think he might cop a tag, it was the North Melbourne one I was concerned about. He was still able to push forward and hit the scoreboard and still get, I think it was nearly 120 from memory. It was on 99 at 3/4 time. And I was thinking,
you said Dawson?
Isaac
Heaney. Yeah, sorry. Against you said North Melbourne.
Isaac Heaney,
so I thought that was you were talking about Dawson.
Yeah, no, this would have been 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And yeah, he pushed forward and he could just boost up his score, copying that tag. But down at Geelong this week, he's going to cop attention, right? It's just a matter of who it's from. I agree. I think Mark O'Connor's probably a better matchup for him physically. But you just know that they're not going to let Heaney do his thing down there. So he's one that I'm probably not looking to play this week, although he's technically in the plug and plays for the season, given how good he's been.
I agree. I'm pretty much the same. So he's just been forced out, I think, for this week.
Yep. And I think the midfield this week, mate, we may be pretty similar in our thinking. I feel like it was pretty clear cut in terms of who I was picking this week. It was maybe that last spot where you could go a couple different ways, but I felt like the plug and plays are pretty clear. Like you've got your Dacos, Bont, Smith, Dawson, Butters. Merritt is a pretty big lock for me this week up against the Tigers. I haven't sort of thought about anyone else other than that. And filling out that last spot, there's a few different ways you could go. Starting off, firstly, avoiding a Noah Anderson. You can see his red there on screen, mate. I have that one sitting in my club.
You've only put the legend there because you're like, yeah, cool. I've got it. I could show it on the screen. I could see it again. You love it.
Oh, I had to. How could I not?
You have
just
to
put that on.
My only legend I've got is Anthony Scott, and it says no active team because he got delisted. So that's brilliant. So yes,
a legend's a legend. It still counts, mate. But yeah, like they're playing North at Marvel. We just spoke about that matchup and why we might like to avoid it. He's shown that he's susceptible to a tag or to attention, and they are a really difficult matchup. So, or at least not last week. I didn't realize 2023 North Melbourne was going to play your boys last week.
I'll take it.
But prior to that, they have been quite restrictive, and I think Clarko will get them up and about this week, back under the lid at Marvel. It's just not one I'm tempted to go on just yet. Maybe you could be tempted if it was up at People First Stadium on the coast, but not at Marvel. I'm pretty keen to avoid that one, mate. So it kind of leaves a couple options out of Lockie Neal and Brayshaw. You mentioned before we came on that Lockie Neal's rounding out your side, and he's rounding out my classic side too. Why are you keen on our Lockie Neal this week, mate?
Yeah, I just think we've seen this from Brisbane over a number of years, right? That every good team is going to have a bad performance in some way, shape, or form along the road, and it just turns out that it was against Geelong, and Geelong are one of the teams that Brisbane and Geelong have been pretty evenly matched over a number of games. I think last year they played 4 times. I think it was 2-2, if I'm not mistaken, or it might be 3-1 one way, but they were close in a few of those games, but obviously Geelong just got the job done. I just think that Neil got the attention from Mullen last week, was actually the top scoring midfield out of all of them, which is funny enough, but like Neil struggled, Dunkley struggled, McCluggage struggled, Will Ashcroft struggled. You just see Giants are struggling a little bit at the moment as well. It's up to Gabba. Is this up to Gabba, if I'm not mistaken?
Nah, it's that NG.
I think regardless,
I'm not
I
too
just
worried
think
about
regardless, Brisbane are going to be breathing fire. You're going to want to respond after that performance. And you look at the midfield and go, well, Lachie Neale's probably going to be a big part of that. So I've got in there. Giants aren't tagging. They haven't tagged for a while now. And I don't think they will.
Yeah.
So I just see Lachie Neale being the big guy here that will get the job done. I think Will Ashcroft probably sneaky shout as well. Had a couple of quiet weeks, could bounce back.
Mate, did you just read my run sheet there?
No.
They had almost like in the exact order the same notes. I thought.
Well, there you go. Great minds think alike.
That's exactly how I started off, just saying that there's one thing I've learned about the Lions since about 2019, and that's that they don't typically put two poor performances together in a row. And if anything, they come out and just go whack the next week. And often it's interstate or backs against the wall, things like that. And yeah, I think Lachie Neale leading from the front, like he has just returned to form, hasn't he? He's just been incredible this year.
You could argue form. You could certainly argue that. I think he's playing as good as he ever has. And then probably a good thing for his own as well, because he might, if he moves, he's probably going to get more money with how well he plays this year, I think. So
exactly. Yeah, well, he's just to give him a bit of love. He's averaging 122 for the season, and he's had scores of 101, 146, 131, and 185 in his last 4 games. So he's in some great form this year. And as you said, we flagged last week. We thought if Geelong were going to give anyone attention, it's a Lachie Neale, and it's no one else. Like it's daylight after that. He's the most damaging player at the moment for them in the midfield. Obviously, Zorko was that laid out too. They had multiple weapons. It was just obviously going to be Lachie Neale. So he did quite well in the end to still get to that score. And yeah, I think I'm keen for him this week myself. And Andy Brayshaw, mate, is another name I thought could be a bit of an option this week. I was really scrambling for that last midfield option to pick because I just felt there were so many options in those plug and plays column, and obviously a Zachy Merritt, for example, that we're sort of locking in. And I probably won't speak too much about Zach Merritt. They're playing the Tigers this week, and I just think we know what we're going to get from Zach Merritt, so he's one we should probably put into our sides. But Andy Bray was the player I thought could maybe round out these picks for round 11. If you're keen to go there, of course. We know what we're like with our Dockers mids and that up and down nature we often see. But I think facing the Saints this week back on their home deck, I have a bit of a feeling that it could be one of them that goes quite big here. And I guess the only thing is that the Saints aren't the best matchup to target for mids on paper. They're currently the 9th hardest matchup for the season, so pretty neutral. Some players have gone pretty well recently, like Noah Anderson in particular. So he's had a 138 on them recently. I do expect Caleb Sarong to probably cop a bit of attention from Hugo Garcia as well. I think that's a pretty obvious matchup, and they'll spend some time on a Caleb Sarong. And I think if you're looking at a Docker, I think it's Brayshaw over the top in terms of that recent form as well. So Brayshaw has had scores of 108, 102, 117, and 120 in his last 4 games. So he's had a really great patch recently that's boosted his average up to a commendable 106 GDS points, whereas Sarong's had scores of 99, 123, 88, and 80 in his last 4. So I think for me, it's a Brayshaw if you're interested in that matchup.
Yeah, if you're interested in the matchup, he's the one, but I just still look at it, right? He's had one score over 120 all year, and that was all the way back in round 2. He's had 2 really, really poor scores, a 68 in round 1, a 71 in round 6. So I feel like he's just a guy that's probably going to get you a low 100 most weeks. He might pop up for an odd 120 here or there, but like you've got Merritt as the options for round 11. Like he's probably the one this week. You're definitely putting in the plug and play against Richmond. Think he goes absolutely massive, but I just have so many other guys I think ahead of Brayshaw week to week just because of the lack of ceiling and just as we said, Freo midfielders. They're very much like the Hawthorn mold. They just all of them score solid enough each week, but. Only Booger that asked about low love for Maxie Holmes. Probably not this week. I just think that I could see some attention going to him. So, like, does like James Jordan, probably the big one. Does he go to like a Tom Stewart, who's been really good in terms of his intercepts? So, like from a football point of view, do they look to go there, or do they look to put him on a Max Holmes and get rid of that run and carry off halfback? So you've been playing off halfback for a fair bit recently. So just keep watch. Could get defender status back in GameDay Squad in 2027. So that would be something to watch. But I'm just a bit worried. Are you similar thoughts there as well? Just Sydney tough matchup as a midfielder only.
Yeah. Yep, and he's just been a bit disappointing recently, to be honest. Like he's scoring, he hasn't really sort of done what he's done when he's playing on ball. So that's just the main thing for me. I just haven't loved it recently. Like he's had scores of 104, 116, 132, and 93
Very
in
similar
his
to
last
Brayshaw,
four
though,
games.
to be fair. Very similar to Brayshaw, pretty much, as over the last month or so.
Yeah, that is
Nothing
true, and
special.
I guess that's probably the spot there. If I'm picking between a Max Holmes and a Brayshaw, I'm probably looking at a Holmes first. But it is a tougher matchup. The Swans there. I think you could definitely go there. I may throw him in a competition as well because he should still be pretty solid. But I'm just not expecting a massive score there from him, unfortunately. So I would love to see him go back on ball, just personally. And yeah, he was just looking like a walk-up pick every week at the start of the season in that role. And then they've just shifted him back behind the footy a bit more. So I'm not loving that, unfortunately. And mate, on screen there, again, looking for a couple pods, I reckon JHF, so Horn Francis as well against the Blues. He started the season like a house on fire and he turned coaches' heads pretty early. He put a 6-game stretch together where he had, over 100 plus GDS points. Some ceiling scores in there too, 144, 151 and 154 in there. But since then, he's gone 78, 79, 76 in a really disappointing 3-week stretch. So I think this one, it's very much a point of difference. It's very spicy, and be aware it does come with some risk with Horn Francis. Some of those poor 70-ish scores, like they were in favourable matchups too, but there may have been a bit of context around them as well. We know the Crows, they are a positive matchup, but that was in a showdown. We know Suns are a positive matchup. That was at TIO. How much do we read into those sort of factors? But coming up against Carlton at home, they're the 5th best matchup, for opposition mids that you can be targeting and the 4th best for the season. I feel that...
Just on this matchup, so on paper, because I was doing my research for Zach Butters and that this week. So as you said, like I've got here that they're so what did you say that for the season they were for mids? Because I've got them as the 7th best matchup for inside mids for the season. Maybe it's...
Was it which one are you looking at? Are you looking at DFS?
I've got Moreira's Magic, DVP.
Oh yeah, I've found variability between different sources in terms of where they're at. So with StatsLab, they currently got them at the 5th best matchup for, I think that's in the last 3 or 5 games I had that filtered by, and then actually both they were the 5th best matchup recently, and then the 4th best matchup for the season to date for GameDay Squad. So
I think it's probably slightly because Moreira's Magic,
difference.
obviously it's AFL fantasy compared to obviously StatsLabs is GDS, right? But I've got them as the 3rd hardest over the last 5, so they've actually really tightened up. And I've noticed that with some of the scores as well. Like Bont last week obviously was a little bit quiet. I think those doggies mids were quiet as well. So I've noticed that they have been a little bit trickier past few weeks. So that's just what I've found anyway. Maybe it's a little bit different in terms of like some midfielders are in GDS but not in other platforms. Maybe that's probably
correct.
One
I reckon. Yep, I reckon that's probably what it is. It's the positional differences that we see between players as well. Because they're ranked there as they're 5th best. I'm looking at that now. So I reckon that's what it is. Could be a combination of the scoring differences in the game and the positional differences for players too. Right. So that could probably swing it for sure. So maybe read into that what you will. Hey, maybe like sort of see what you think. But in terms of his recent form against them, last time he played them, 44 points, but he was subbed out of the game.
50, of course, he was injured in that game. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. 2 before that, 121 and 118. So I just have a feeling like Sanders last week, probably very similar to a Jason Horne-Francis through the midfield, explosive player, can push forward. He had 26 disposals and a goal for 120 GDS points. Neil the week before that had 146 GDS points. I guess the flag here is that Carlton, they've obviously got Josh Fraser as their interim coach and they're coming off a win. We know when teams have that change in coach, they can do some unpredictable things. That might be the only little flag for me this week. But back at home, I think if you're looking for a pod, you could look at a Jason Horne-Francis if you are so inclined.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing is I don't know if I like, and I'm not saying this is a Crows fan, because people might be saying, you're saying it's a Crows fan. I don't know if I want to double up on Port's midfield. That's the only thing. Because I got Butters. We got Butters in the playing and plays. I'm not sure, unless it was like a really, really good matchup. I think I'd probably just prefer just Zach Butters. But if you want to go for a pod instead of Butters, you think Butters might get some attention, you could go Horn Francis to still have that Port player in there back at home.
Yeah, or even depending on your card setup too in a competition as well. If you don't have a Butters in high rarity for one of those other competitions, but you have a Horn Francis, well then, exactly. Maybe that could be an option there as well for sure. And then obviously, look, LDU, he can do some funny things there as an option up against again. We thought he could be an option last week against the Crows and not to be. But yeah, this week I think potentially against the Gold Coast Suns, he could be one you're looking at
injured late though,
there as well. If you would.
My only concern, had that. He's fine. They say he's all good to go, but I just think that does that worry you a little bit, just with the little, like, it might not be an injury issue, but might just a little tweak at the end.
Yeah, maybe something to keep an eye on for teams and see what the news is around that.
Well, they say he's all good. They say he's good to go, so they said that he's going to play. I'm just worried that is he going to be carrying something a little bit like what Bont has been carrying, maybe not the same injury, right? But you're just carrying but I guess every player's carrying a knock, right? No player out there's probably 100% fit.
They would be. Yeah, I feel like this matchup could be one that a midfielder might be able to get on top.
The Suns are a pretty good matchup. Second best or third best matchup.
Yeah, and we know LDU has a ceiling as well. So when you're picking those points of difference, they're the things you want. You want to see a ceiling. You want to see a positive matchup, or at least by the data potentially. So I think he's one if you are. But again, I'm not looking to play him in a couple of competitions because I've got so many other guys ahead of him. But I thought I'd just flag that in terms of the positive matchup. And maybe keep an eye on that as well. But mate, we'll keep moving on to the rucks. We'll have a great discussion there about our rucks. And before we even do, I'll just give Michael Cossey a shout out here as well. He just wants to apologise to everyone. Faded Bont 2 weeks ago. We goes about 160 and then picked him last week for a 106. So don't worry, mate. I think there'd be a few others in the same position.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully big bounce back from Bont this week.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope so. And mate, our rucks here, let's have a look. We've got 4 options I think that we could be looking at. Probably the same 4 options every single week. And it's a question of which 2 are we going. And there's 1 point of difference there on screen too with Darcy Cameron. So hopefully he is right to come back in. He obviously missed last week. And we've seen Oscar Steen go down since with an ACL. So they'd be desperate to have him back in the side if they can. I think by all reports that it's looking likely. And he has a positive matchup this week against the West Coast Eagles at the MCG, obviously in Pendle's record-breaking game. So I think that if you're looking for a point of difference outside of those 4 options in a ruck, pending what happens at teams, you might want to, or you could look at a Darcy Cameron there. But otherwise, we're probably looking at those 4 on screen.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, don't mind Darcy Cameron this week. Brody Grundy though, he's got to be in the play. He's got to be in the play. I don't know I can't remember if you do plug and plays for rucks, but
we did, but we've just found with those, like,
because they're all so
there's
good.
A few ruck share roles going around, things change, and then they're so good and they've got such a big ceiling on their day that it's more of a weekly discussion around which 2 are we going. I think that's kind of where we've landed. Tim English, he'll come into that conversation again soon for sure. With our rucks there once he's back from his concussion. Is he ruled out
officially this week with concussion? Is that?
I think it's a team thing. So I have to double check and see. I saw some news earlier that he was, and then I've heard that they're going to test and see if he's okay, if they can get him in late. We'll see what happens at teams.
It's a bit concerning though that they had still. It's like we're on Wednesday night and we haven't heard anything. So it's like even if he does play, it's like is he going to be there fully ready to go? He's got Gorn. Yeah. So it's like it'll be interesting. But I think Grundy's the easy one. Grundy, you lock in. He's got Geelong this week. Great matchup, regardless who they play. He's going to go big. We saw that last week. It's just Gorn, Jackson, Sherry. Like Sherry, Gold Coast tough matchup. But you think if anyone's going to be breathing fire after a bad performance last week, it's going to be Tristan Sherry. So is he going to be coming out with a big point to prove there? Jackson, I think Saints would be one of the toughest matchups for rucks, if I'm not mistaken, this season with the duels out there. And Gorn's got Heath at the moment. So if Heath drops, it's obvious that we go Gorn, Grundy, we leave it at that, right? But if Heath is there, I'm hoping. I'm tossing up Jackson and Gorn at the moment as the 2. I think I've currently got Gorn sitting in there at the moment, but it's a tough one.
This is the difficult thing, because if you go, okay, I'm not going to go with Tristan Sherry, like he's got the ceiling where he can put a big 160 on your head. But to be fair, they've all probably got that ceiling as well. With the Tristan Sherry, the one thing I was looking at, you're right, like the Suns, they're not a great matchup for opposition rucks. They're rolling with that Witts and Moyle dual ruck set up there too. And I think with Tristan Sherry as well, keep in mind that his scoring's been up and down in the past against the Suns, and they're actually his worst matchup for career to date. So he's had 80, 134, and 68 against them in his past 3 for an average of 94 GDS points. If you want to hang your head on something, though, if you want to pick him, like that score of 134, that highest score out of those 3, that was at Marvel Stadium.
And if Witts,
and that's
Witts
probably
is, like Witts was laid in, if he's not there next week, if it's just Moyle, that might be another thing. You go, okay, well, if he's up just against Moyle, you think he's probably going to have a decent enough time there.
Be a bit different. 100%, yeah. So something to consider. I think for me, given his recent matchup or his recent form against them, I'm probably going to look against him this week. I'll go for a couple of the others. And he's had, again, a couple of his matchups too. He's had a bit like Grundy, right? He's had some massive scores, but then he's had a couple of poor scores in there too. He had an 86 last week against the Crows and a 70 against the Bombers in round 3. That was obviously his blood incident there. So, yeah, for me, I'm probably going to look against him this week. And, yeah, lock in Grundy. Are you concerned with Grundy that it's down at GMHBA, though? Like, they're the positive matchup. Ground. They're a great matchup. Opposition
small ground, more stoppages. That's like we last week with hang on. It's my cool. I thought my microphone just disconnected there, but it's still. You can hear me. Still all good.
Yeah, I can. Sounds like it's coming through another mic there, mate. Set up there. It wasn't coming through the one it was coming through before.
Keep talking without me. I'll just try and fix this up.
Yeah, easy. The one thing I would say with Grundy too, that was my only thing, was down at GMHBA. Are we going to, is that something we're going to maybe raise as a flag? But I do like that call being the smaller ground for sure. And last time they played, he hasn't played them since round 13 of 2024. He had a 114 GDS point game in that one. And he's had some really good scores against them prior to that, if you go back a little while too, because he had that patch where he wasn't quite scoring as well. But he's just the ruck pig, isn't he? He's averaging 123 for the season, and he's had ceiling scores of 183, 147, and 155. He's unbelievable. That feeling I had waking up and looking at his score on Saturday morning of 183 was incredible, and it just went downhill after that. So I think I'm probably going to pick him this week again. And you're right, for Gawn, I hope Max Heath gets dropped. I really do. From a fantasy perspective, right? They're probably liking what he's doing from a footy perspective, giving him a chop out and letting him spend more time forward.
He only played 25% game time last week, and I'm assuming you can hear me now. So the microphone hopefully is all good.
It's all good, mate.
He played 25% game time. Yesterday he had the HIA last week, but I don't know. Gawney's the captain. I don't know. It'd be good if he was dropped from a fantasy point of view, because then we'd just lock Gawn in there, right? But they just obviously like what Heath is doing, right? 100%. They're like, he's our next ruck for when Gawn will eventually retire. But yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah. Recent scores against English too. If he was potentially to go out of the side and Gawn has that number one role, he's had 135, 151, 154 against them, which is incredible. So an average of 146.7 in his last 3. And imagine this without a Tim English. If a Max Heath was away, and maybe there's a case to say if Heath is still there,
they give him more time. They give him more time to ruck if there's no English there, right? It's a good point. It's a good point. So in that, I think teams will dictate this, right? If Witts isn't there for the North Melbourne matchup, that would make me interested in Cherry again. If for some reason Mason Cox got dropped, and they're just like, let's just play Jackson, Tracy, Amos, and Voss, then I'll be like, yeah, cool. Jackson might bump up, but then if Gawn doesn't have Heath there, then it's like, well, Gawn's the guy. So I think teams will be probably where we'll decide now R2. I have a feeling.
100%. And just before we move on, mate, just in terms of Luke Jackson, just to give him a bit of love there too, you're right in saying St Kilda, they're a restrictive matchup for opposition ruck, so the second most restrictive in the last 5 games according to our Stats Lab, and the 6th most restrictive for the season. So they're obviously rolling that dual ruck setup there with a Rowan Marshall and a TDK. Luke Jackson, he's had previous scores against them, 118, 73, 126, so he can score against them. But obviously that was when Rowan Marshall would have been the number 1 man. So it is a bit of a different setup they're rolling with last year. So we probably can't look too much at that previous data. We also know Jacko's role has probably in that time been up and down in itself in terms of if he's playing ruck or if he's playing forward or whatever he's doing. His role at the moment is looking good though, even though Mason Cox is still in the side. And they played Hawthorn a couple of weeks ago, and we said that was a dual ruck setup in Meakin Reeves, and they're a tough matchup, proven tough matchup, 144, not a problem. So he was managed last week, obviously, so 68% time on ground and only got to 50% of ruck contests, which was down from about 70% typically. They were coming off a short break as well, keep in mind. So I think for him, there's probably a reason why he didn't score well last week. And I think if you've got a Luke Jackson card or you've got a feeling you want to play him, I think you definitely can, given what we've seen him do against some typically tough matchups.
Yeah, he's starting to sell me a little bit on Jackson now. Shorter break, low game time from last week.
He's almost, is he, dare I say, almost the next safest pick behind?
I think he's the next safest pick, yeah, for sure. Because he's like another midfielder for Freo, right? He's not a traditional ruck. He gets a lot of ball around the ground. He's actually improved his marking and tested marking this year from what I've seen. He just seems to be taking some more pack marks than what he has previously done. So yeah, I think if Heath is named for Widgorn, I think if Witts is named in the team alongside Moyle, I think that rules out the other two and you go Jackson.
Yeah, I like that. I like that call for sure. And probably still want a piece of them somewhere, maybe in another competition. But yeah, I would agree with you there for sure. Mate, moving on, our forwards. Let's have a look. Our forwards for round 11. Is it forwards or frauds? I was listening to the traders there talk about that, and I had a good laugh, the fraud line. It's how it feels sometimes picking these blokes. Like I looked at Isaac Rankin last week, your boy. I thought, mate, surely he cops attention. Surely he gets tagged. And I saw the start of the game and I saw Foss running with him and doesn't matter. Still does his thing. Still gets to 120. And yeah, as I said, didn't realise 2023 North Melbourne were turning up. If I had known that, I would have picked Isaac Rankin. But anyhow, you live and you don't learn. Our plug and plays. We've got Harry Sheasel, Cosy Pickett,
you live and you don't
Christian
learn. I like that one.
Christian Petrarca and Justin McInerney too. We've had to put him in our plug and plays. I guess just the consistency too, right? And he put up that 120, which was nice. It's probably his next best score behind that 140 he had against Carlton early in the season. So I think he's there now, given that consistency. Sam Flanders should probably be back in there too.
I'd probably put him in the plug and plays now, back-to-back tons. There was a bit of a flag that,
especially with Naz
there's a bit of a flag with him this week, just with the fact that he was didn't take part in a lot of the main training, but he flew over to Perth. So I know that Naz got to Northern Territory and didn't play, but you'd think being on a game on a Friday, flying over now, you'd think that flying over to Perth as well, if he wasn't going to play, he wouldn't fly. So I think he's fine, just for any of those that were concerned seeing that floating around today.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to be in our size, mate. He's in great form. And then, playing a bit more behind the ball as well with Naz out. Still goes through some CBAs too. He had 52% CBAs, 2 kick-ins. So he's got a pretty good role. And we've seen what his scoring's like in those recent weeks. So you're keen on Sam Flanders. You're locking him in?
Yeah, locked in.
Yeah, and so I guess the Freo matchup there may be the only thing if you weren't too keen on him. And that's actually a good comment there in the chat there too. If we talk about a Sam Flanders and we've got a Brad Hill, maybe I'm scarred. Maybe this is some bias here, not having a Brad Hill there.
This is Brad Hill. This is Brad Hill. Like you get to trust him, and then he slaps you with a 50. Like unfortunately, that's just been Brad Hill. So he's very much in other formats. He's a draft only player, and in GameDay Squad's good, right? Because you can play him week to week, right? So like you're probably thinking, well, he's going to have a lower one last week. He's probably going to respond with a better one this week, right? But I feel like I know we've been calling the forwards the frauds at the moment, but I feel like there are some, like if you got Shees, Cozzy, Petrarca, and McInerney, and then you also add in Flanders, right? 35. So you got 2 more spots left.
Yeah.
Like Rankin this week against Hawthorn, they have to put attention to him, surely. Like I think, did Finn McGuinness hold his spot? That was probably the big one for me. Did he hold his spot?
Something to look
I'm
at.
just having a look quickly now because those teams dropped. Finn
McGuinness. Finn
McGuinness is his name. So I would imagine he goes to Rankin there if they're going to tag. The other one you've got there as well for options this week, I really like Jack Ross this week against the Bombers. Great matchup. He's probably there.
He's in my side.
So it's like then you've got that 6 and you got 1 spot. So it's like I feel like it was supposed to be pretty vanilla almost for a lot of us.
Oh, I think after what we saw last week, probably. With Isaac Rankin, though, like he's just been in great form, so you would think somebody does have to put attention to him. That's 4 tons in a row, and we've talked about his role recently. Like he's playing 70+%.
He's the number 1 midfielder for the
CBAs.
Clear number 1 mid.
Yeah, and he's looking so good doing it too. So he's kicked at least a goal in every game as well, except for 1 this season. So I think it's positive. If we look at the Hawks as well, like, we saw Tom Sparrow, he scored 117 last week against them.
Because he scored poor. I think
Langford
that's the big thing. Like
101.
that's the guy
Yeah,
who gets
exactly. Got
tagged.
tagged
So
out.
like I love Rankin. I don't have him there this week. I think I've pretty much just gone to the fact that I wasn't going to play him against North. I'm not going to play him against Hawthorn,
Yep.
and I'm not going to play him obviously after the bye against Geelong. But after that, he'll be in my team pretty much every week. Like he'll be a plug and play. I think once he gets past these buys, I think. So yeah,
Cold night as well,
yeah,
I'd imagine. God, that's going to be a hard watch if it's a freezing cold
they're
night
just
down there in
they're not good
Launceston,
games.
and then he's getting
They're
tagged out
not
of a
good games
game.
to watch. I remember Hawthorn Giants last year wasn't great to watch, and even the game Hawthorn Adelaide last year in Tassie wasn't good to watch either. So I'll be watching as a Crows fan, and just I'll think it'd be a good game if the Crows win, but I don't think it's going to be I think besides Dawson, probably the only one we've got here is like a locked in our side, but everyone else is like, do we really want to play him? It could be another game where
Yeah.
you have 3 tons. They're like between 105 and 115, and the rest are like around 90s. That I think we could probably see that.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Jack Ross as well, mentioning him, I've got him in my side, mate. That's 4 weeks since we spoke about him last as a bit of an option, and he's we're hoping for a bit of a better return this time around than we picked him last time. But he's just been great, right? It's like coming up to that D's matchup. He was looking really positive in that one. So he had a season high 140 GDS points the week before. He didn't really repay coach's faith in him, though. Like, he only returned a score of 75. But since then, he's gone 108, 105, 115 in his last 3 games. So he's been incredible since that point. And then last week as well against the Saints there, we had his disposal count. That's 23 he had. That was his lowest disposal count since round 5, believe it or not. So he's been really consistent. He's got that role there in their midfield. His CBAs, so he's been pretty solid there. It has dropped a little bit recently, but he's scoring so well for them. So coming up against the Bombers this week, they're the easiest matchup for those opposition mids. And we talked about this being one we could target for the players we're picking. And last week we saw players from the Dockers. They went really well. We had Reed 115 and Bolton 113. Brayshaw hit a ton with 108. So before that, players have filled their boots as well against them. So in our forward lines, I love that pick. I love picking players in our forward line that do have a good role like that, especially when we've seen other players just pop up these really poor scores. So I'm pretty keen on a Jack Ross this week. And what about could you pair him with a Tom Sparrow as your 2 to round out the forward line?
100% you can, right? It's like Tom Sparrow's been very good. Again, one of those players that I think for years we were all sort of wondering, like he got so much midfield time. We're all sitting there going, he's not really anything special. Like why is he getting so much responsibility in the Melbourne midfield and sort of having so much midfield time? But this year he's actually really improving a lot, and he'd be one of those guys leading, I guess, the most improved award this year because he's gone from being a guy that's been in around the side, maybe out a lot more than in, and all of a sudden he's just getting it done week on week. So I'm just pulling up what his scores have been over the last few weeks. So
His last 4 GameDay Squad, he's had 137, 118, 109, and 117 in his last 4 games. So and his CBAs as well have reflected how well that's going. Like, he's had 80, 67, 73, 71, 76% CBAs. That's all since round 6. So the roles there, forms there. He's available as a forward. I traded, I think it was yesterday, I traded for his bronze. I didn't have a bronze of him, so I'm going to put him in my classic side this week. I'm excited for that. So yeah, he should be good, right? Like, the Dogs maybe aren't the best matchup to be picking him for being a midfielder. They're, they're allowing the 6th least amount of points to opposition mids. So they're not the best one to target, but probably just picking him for how solid he's been, right? And just scoring around that 100 mark every week.
Exactly. I've got one guy just ahead of him though, and that's the next pod that you've got there.
Is it
the next pod you've got there?
The other one on screen there?
He's obviously that role has definitely changed from what it was. He's much more of that inside midfielder now. Like, he had the most CBAs on the ground, not just for Collingwood, on the ground last week. So he had 23 CBAs. Grundy was next with 20, right? And with ruck, when you're having more CBAs on a ruck, you know what your position is. You know you're playing inside mid, and that's it. So you love to see it. And it's really been since, I think it was it round 5 or round 6 that he had that really early injury. I think it was it wasn't against Carlton. I think it was the week before because he missed the game against Carlton. It was against Freo where he got injured really early.
Yep.
Got the I think it was like 20 GDS points.
Gather round, wasn't it?
Yeah, gather round. Yeah, when he was out really, really early. But since then, he's been good.
Yep.
Like against Essendon again, he didn't actually have as many CBAs. He was actually down at 13, so he was behind Dacos, Pendlebury, and Angus Anderson. We know Angus Anderson's CBAs have certainly dropped the last few weeks.
Yep.
Hawthorn, he went to the third most behind Nick Dacos and Ned Long. And then obviously the game that we didn't touch on, which is the Geelong game, he ended up being on the ground the second highest for Collingwood mids behind Nick Dacos with 17. Wow. So I know Penn was out last week and he'll get some midfield time, right? But De Goey's still going to have a pretty significant role in that midfield. And we saw it might have been 4-5. It was a while ago now, a few years ago, where when De Goey was playing as a midfielder, he was just getting it done and averaging. I think he was averaging over would have been 90, 95 GDS points in that role. So I think if he's doing that, good matchup against West Coast this week. I don't think he's going to get the attention when you've got the Dacos brothers there. Well, Nick's always going to be the number one tag guy, and West Coast don't have two taggers for midfielders. I think De Goey's going to be able to do his thing and get it done. So I really like him this week in a big matchup for Collingwood, obviously with Pendle's record-breaking game.
Yeah, and you feel like Jordan De Goey could be one who gets a hold of the Eagles as well through that midfield and pushing forward. They're the second best, team in terms of what they're giving up to opposition mids. But interestingly, it's actually the second worst matchup for his career. But however, it's for me, and for Haz, we're probably looking at the role and we're looking at the form of the player and what they're giving up currently.
Season.
Exactly. And that role's pretty solid. Even with Pendles coming back in, it was 96% CBAs last week. We're converting those numbers you just mentioned before, which is incredible. So that's not going to be the same this week, but should still be very good because we've seen that role be super consistent. And we've seen players...
Sorry, you go. Sorry, my apologies.
I was going to mention, Clayton Oliver had 131 against them over in the past few weeks. Kane McAuliffe 121, Marcus Windhager 137, Hugo Garcia 127. There's scores there, and JDG, he's been in iterations of my classic side, and I'm really liking a Jack Ross, Tom Sparrow, and Jordan De Goey. So what you've mentioned there about Finn McGuinness and how he obviously went to Cosy Pickett last week, and the fact they've got Isaac Rankin this week, yeah, it's given me something to think about. Maybe that's something we look at is, maybe having him out and putting somebody else in, one of these players.
Well, that's what I got. Yes, I got De Goey in over Rankin at the moment. Don't have Sparrow at the moment, though. I'd like to fit him in somehow. But just looking at De Goey's way, so he went to 108 last week, but that was... I feel like that could have been a lot more. Like he started the game obviously on absolute fire. 11 touches in the first quarter, and I believe that he had, I think he had 40 GDS points at quarter time. So he was on an absolute heater. But if anyone was watching that game after quarter time, Nick Dacos actually played a fair bit forward, which they end up moving Sam Wicks onto him when he went forward and Jordan onto Dacos when he went to the mid. So Jordan actually went a little bit with De Goey, not hard tag, but just loosely following him around. So that was why he's a little bit quieter after quarter time. We know De Goey gets more marks over the ground, but when he gets attention, he doesn't. Obviously, last week he only had the 2 marks. So those increase. He keeps those mid-20 touches, kicks a goal or two, which he didn't kick a goal last week. You're looking at a 120-plus score. So I'm a big fan of De Goey, I think.
Yeah, so give me food for thought, mate. I think I might have to look at these picks this week and, just really go for the ones I like. I like a JDG, so I might try to fit him in now. The other pod we've got on screen there too, that primetime pod. Peter Wright, keep an eye on that.
You might not see the news. He's out for 3 to 4 months with a knee injury.
Oh, when did that come through?
It would have been yesterday or the day before, I think. It was a couple of days. It was in the last couple of days. Yeah, not a lot of people saw it.
Don't put him in there.
I was actually just about to mention that to you before we moved on to the next thing because I was going to say he's out for a little bit, but I would probably just, if you're looking for primetime pod, chuck him out and put the other rest of 40. Nate Caddy. He's probably also an under-22s player this week as well. Nate Caddy, good matchup against Richmond.
Be someone for sure. Absolutely. And look, Josh Rochelle, poor bloke, I reckon he cops it from us every week. He's just given the avoid recently. Again, cold night down in Tassie.
Yeah, 3 CBAs all in the first quarter and just played forward. So you're just not going to get any. You might get an 80 or a 90 any given week, but you're not going to get those solid sort of 100-plus scores we've seen in the midfield, unfortunately. I'd like to see Rankin and Rochelle in the midfield a bit as a Crows fan and as fantasy coach. Just want to see how it works a little bit. They actually had 3 CBAs together last week, all in the first quarter, but then it went. So don't know if that was sort of just because Crows were winning, so just thought we don't need to put both in. I'd like to see it maybe happen a bit, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, exactly right. And just before we move on to finish off the show, mate, and we'll roll through a few preview teams. We've got Arnie Booger there, Jezza. Look, Honey Boogie, if you can tell me that Jez is going to kick another 7-8 goals, whatever he normally does when I don't pick him, then I will go there absolutely. I don't have him in at the moment, but he's always super popular, and you never know what he's going to do. He had a pretty good game last week against the Lions too at the Gabba, so that was a pretty tough matchup as well. So you can definitely pick a Jezza this week. Just let me know if you think he's going to kick 10. Mian as well is Bailey Williams at ruck again, a ruck again this week. He went massive last round. Short answer, no, mate. Do not look at him this week. He went up against Briggsy last week, so Briggsy gives up a bit in terms of the ruck, and I think I'm probably not keen to be looking at him this week.
It's a pod. It's
How
a
do you
pod.
think
He's available as a forward, I think, in GameDay Squad as well. So I think that probably puts him on the radar a little bit more as a forward. He played his best game I've seen him play actually last week. Again, I wouldn't put him in there because I've still got the plug and plays ahead of him. I'd have Flanders, Ross, Sparrow, DeGoey, guys like that ahead of him. But I don't hate the thinking because after last week,
no, it's good thinking, but he came in round 5, and so I remember this is the game where I think that's the week I took out the Sunday Showdown, and half an hour before I was trying to get his card on the marketplace somewhere, and I couldn't find him anywhere because I was like, he's going to be my pod I chuck in. I was going to roll him and Nick Madden. I was going to go those two as my 2 rucks, but then I realised why I couldn't find him because he's not available as a ruck. He's available as a forward. And so then I was like, oh, I wish I had known that. And he went 127 that week. The next week, 51. 76, 82, 79, 154. So for me, he's just a bit too unpredictable.
Was it round 5, you said?
Round 5, yeah. So I think I love the thinking, Mian, and I reckon, mate, write him down somewhere, write his name down somewhere, because when there's another positive matchup for Rucks, for West Coast, maybe playing at Optus, you could definitely throw him in your forward line as a pod because he does have that ceiling given that role.
Be fair, like looking at the matchups, he actually had some tough matchups as well in those ones where he scored a bit lower. So like looking here, so round 5 obviously was a good matchup there in Gather Round when he had Geelong. But then he had Freo. I think Darcy or Cox were there. So obviously dual ruck set up there. Then they played St Kilda, dual ruck set up again. Then he had Richmond. That's probably the one poor one that he had there in round 8 in a good matchup there. But West Coast did lose that game, so it's probably a thing there as well. Then he played Gawn and Heath the following week. And then last week he played in a good matchup against Briggs. So this week he's got Cameron. So it's just a solo ruck again. So I don't know. Maybe he goes okay. Maybe they match up quite well. So
yeah, I'd love it more if it was at home, personally. That's just me. But definitely great thinking and something to keep an eye on. I'll be keen to see how he goes as well this week, having spoken
don't
about
Don't mind Zach Bailey either as well, just while talking about pods for forward line. Brisbane, they're going to respond. Zach Bailey's going to be probably one. You
can always talk me into a Zach Bailey, that's for sure. We've got the champ. Champ is here as well. GES Classic Cup champion. Congrats, Silver Pigeon is in the chat, tuning in from the car, mate. Congratulations. What a win. Taking out Classic Cup. That is absolutely unreal. And Bowers, I don't know if you saw this in the Discord. Did you see the legend that he pulled? I think it was yesterday.
I didn't see legend. I did see that he won though. So congrats, Silver Pigeon. Who did he pull in the legend?
He pulled a legend Luke Jackson. How is that?
What? Why could I get that as not Jackson? Why could I get someone that was on a list this year as my legend? Like for Silver Pigeon, if you missed it, the only legend I've ever packed in Aussie rules was Anthony Scott, who got, and I packed him with 3 weeks ago in the year, and I'm like, he's going to get delisted at the end of the year. This is a waste of a legend. So, the congrats, mate.
I'll tell you what, LJ, Dogger Jackson, he is not a waste. Congratulations, Silver Pigeon, mate, and congratulations for the cup as well, of course. And, mate, here are our contender sides. So, a few little pods getting around in here, particularly my forward line as well. I've obviously got a Jordan DeGoey in there. A Connor Budrick as well, just given the matchup. I thought I'd throw him in down there and see how we go. Isaac Rankin's probably going to stay there. I reckon I might take him out of Classic, though. I think I might try and explore another option there. I've got Sparrow and Jack Ross in Classic as well. They're the two that round out my forward line. But I reckon I might try and squeeze a JDG in there as well now, potentially after those chats we've just had. In the back line there, pretty standard, I think, for both Haz and I. He hasn't put his salary in just yet. He only got time to just do the bronzes. But he's rolling with his Bailey Dale. He's going to go with him. And then in the back line there as well, he's 2. So I think the midfield should be fairly similar. I'm deciding to roll with an Andy Bray in Contender, but I've got Lockie Neal in my Classic side. So just probably trying to vary the picks across different competitions. LJ, Dogger Jackson, he'll get a run in my Contender team at the moment. And look, given teams like our discussion with the rucks, mate, there's every chance he comes into my classic side, and I maybe put a different ruck into this contender team. We'll just have to see what Thursday night brings, and Friday night, of course. And yeah, you can see a Jack Ross there down in Hazard's forward line as well. Have you got any thoughts, mate, before we continue moving on around those teams?
Well, I was just going to say that I'm not in the cup anymore, so I can actually screen share my side if you'd
Oh,
like to
yeah.
put it up there. I've just shared it. So if you'd like to chuck it up, I've got my classic side there because I'm not in the cup anymore. The cup's got done, right? So I don't have to hide the salaries as much there. So whenever it does come up on the screen, this will be what I'm currently rolling with in classic.
Just get that.
I've had swapped a couple of players out as we've been like talking throughout the episode there. So, but it's fairly similar to what I had earlier.
All right. Just give me a sec there, mate. I'll have a look at it.
Probably should. I should have warned you a little bit, but I only just thought about when you put the squads up. Just hang on, I should share my team and squad and how it's looking ahead of this week. So I thought,
yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to work out how I can get that up there, mate. Sorry.
It says hang on. It says sources. Is there a way that I can?
Let me have a look here.
Put it on, or is it only from your side?
All right, give that a go there now, mate. See if you can have a go. Maybe it is just from my side.
It might just be from your side because it's just you on the screen at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
It should come through because it's on my screen and it says like the source has been shared. So it might be a way that you can do it potentially.
Sorry, mate. I can't get that up. I apologise. I'll have a look at this next time you're on there for you. And actually, hang on. I think I've just worked it out here. Here we go. All right. There we are.
Oh, here we go. There it is. That's currently how we're rolling there. So obviously got a bit of salary on Archie Roberts this week, being obviously against Richmond, a bit on Sinclair as well. Got the Bronze Ash there. Nice. I do have some salary on Whitfield. He's probably one I might swap from Whitfield maybe over to like a Jaden Short, for example. Got Sorka there as well. Then got Jake Bowie, my pod with the silver on the bench there. Baz has got the platinum. I'm not making that same mistake. But if he's not there, obviously that'll be a little bit of restructure. All-Star Dacos and Prize Card Dawson, they're two of my prize babies. They're not moving really out of this classic side. Butters, Bont, Merritt, Neil all got salary. I always try and put the salary on the midfielders there. Grundy, Jackson, then Shees, Cosy, Petrarca, Flanders, McInerney, DeGoey, and Jack Ross rounding out there. I don't tend to put a lot of salary on my forwards, very rarely. So I've got Silver and Cosy because I don't think you get attention. Got a ceiling, and then I think Sheezel's got a good matchup this week. So
yeah, I'm the same. I think those forwards, I don't tend to do a lot with them. I've had a bit of salary on Christian Petrarca in some weeks as well. That's been really handy. Like even just a silver down there, I find can be pretty valuable. Had some salary on Sam Flanders last week. I had a silver on him down there as well. So I find that can be pretty fruitful if if there's a really good matchup for them. But yeah, otherwise they're typically your bronzes. Hey, but looking like a very solid side, mate. In terms of Justin McInerney,
I see
as well.
So I see Auntie Booger there saying cashed up. Yeah, the only reason there's that cash there is because it was I won the classic round. I think it was like 5 weeks ago. So it was like $500 or something. So it's just been accruing some IPL cash as well. Some little bit of cash here and there. So it's been nice.
All good coaching, mate. That's for sure. I like your salary on Zach Merritt too. I think I'm very similar. Merritt, Smith, Grundy, Sheasel, Roberts. That's very similar to me in terms of who you're loading up there on. But yeah, Justin McInerney with that Geelong matchup down at GMHBA. He's obviously not going to cop any attention. Are you liking him for that reason there and the role?
Yeah, he was obviously in the plug and plays, and I think there's a good reason he's been pretty consistent, getting it done. Good role as well. So I think he's there. I'd love to fit Sparrow. It's funny. I'd like to put Sparrow in there somewhere, but it's just like I don't know who.
It's a great point.
So I like the matchup for DeGoey. I love the matchup for Ross, and then Shees, Cosy, Petrarca, Flanders, and McInerney just not moving. So
I like that. I'm gonna have to go back and have a look at my team as well in terms of classic after that for sure. Now, mate, let's round out this show as well. Thank you so much for sharing your side there, mate. I appreciate it. I know our viewers do as well. It's always good to see those insights. Now, let's have a look here. I'll just pull it back up. There we go. All right. Primetime team as well. Just make sure, thanks to StatsLab too, make sure you get boys. Check out the StatsLab website. JT does an data we talk about. That's where it comes from. get on board. You can see the played percentages for each player across all your competitions. If you're thinking of playing it safe, or you really want to go for a pod and you want to see what everyone else is doing, check out Stats Lab, and you've got all the matchup data too. So they're unreal. And I've tried to throw all my best diamonds that are available. I've got an Isaac Rankin All-Star I'm going to roll out. But I've also thrown a few silvers and golds in terms of players who have that good matchup. So just to show you. But yeah, I think a primetime team, mate, some good teams to be picking from this week.
Yeah, I'm just jealous of all the diamonds you've got. I've got hardly any. I've probably got maybe 3 or 4 useful diamonds week to week, but
I reckon
certainly need to get a few.
Part of that has been some of those membership perks there too from GameDay Squad, and being able to recycle some cards and some legends as well potentially. So that's been quite handy. Some of those changes they've made recently. Been very lucky in terms of that. And check out that there too if you haven't either. But at BroDown Showdown, mate, we had our BroDown Showdown last week, Content Creator Edition, Standard Edition, and have a look there on screen. It went down to the wire. Some great picks and some terrible picks as well. Toby Green, namely, on screen, if you have a look at him. That was disgusting. So you took the win out there in the forward line. Sam Flanders, he was unreal, 125. Zach Merritt as well. He went down in the midfield to your Zach Butters. He got the better of him with 122 to 109. Slowed down in the last, had a bit of time off the ground as well, Zach Merritt from memory. It was a bit disappointing. And then back line as well, it was Jaden Short who got the wood over Nick Newman for us. And it was
bloody Nick Newman. Cost me the win. Would have been the definitive win if it wasn't for that poor
I can't believe it came down to Jaden Short at the end. He started so well and then slowed down. And I thought he might not. He's going to struggle to get over this 98, and he just did, thankfully, because it meant that Brody Grundy was the highest scorer out of all our picks, which means 2-2. It then came down to that, and we took out the win there, mate. So apologies there, but
unbelievable.
We'll do another one as well for
that was good fun.
A BroDown Showdown for sure. That's who picked the Fantasy Bros last week. So we had B31. Mel's Miss Mian as well, and our GDS Cup champ Pidge. I made sure I put that on there as well. So Silver Pigeon is that GDS Cup champ. I'm going to spin that there now on screen, mate, and we'll see who has got themselves a row of cards in our 9-player common all-star pack. And it looks like it's going to be Reese as well.
So do you know how many people backed me? I forgot to check how many people.
Had more. I don't have.
Do you have the? I don't have
the number on me. I don't have numbers on me,
more.
But you had more backing you. Yeah, there weren't. Yeah, you had more.
I'll take them all. I'll do it. I'll do an England. I'll do the England cricket team and say I caught the moral victory.
Yeah, you can take that. I always struggle to get people going for me sometimes, but somehow I take out the win, which I'm happy with. I'll get this pack up on screen. So Reese is going to get a row of these cards here. Haz will get another, and I'll get a row myself as well too. So Bales, I'm going to get you to pick the row which you think Reese should get, and then Haz and I can take the others.
Yep.
Let's see what we can get as well. Love the animations. Fingers crossed here for some good cards for Reese.
Yeah.
What do you want to give him, mate?
Well, last time I did this, I picked middle row, and they weren't very good. I'm going to back it again because I'm hoping it's like Brisbane. They don't have two bad ones back to back. So I'm going to go middle row here for Reese.
All right, see, we've got a gold, another gold, and a silver. It looks like. Is that a silver or a plat? I can't tell sometimes on the monitor I have.
That's a silver one, I reckon.
All right, we've got a Ned Moyle gold from the Suns, a gold Jordan Ridley, and a silver Jed Walter as well. Would have been.
Hopefully, the Gold Coast boys better for Dynasty. Hopefully, for years it might be useful in matchups, particularly Ned Moyle.
Yeah, Jed Walter as well. He's under 22 eligible if you're playing that competition, so he's eligible for that comp. Yep. And a Jordan Ridley as well is normally a fantasy relevant player when he's fit and firing, so he's always good to have in your club. In the other two as well, we've got down here. Let's have a look. A couple silvers.
I think that on the left's a platinum.
That's the platinum, absolutely. So got silver Luke, silver Fort, and a plat Jesse Hogan as well. All right, so. I'll have that row, and Haz can have the top one, or I don't mind anyway. To be honest, I'm happy just flipping them. We got a Kenny, or I might have to take the top row actually. Yeah, I'll take the top one. Haz can have the bottom. I know he's got a bit of he doesn't like a Matt Kennedy at the moment. He's got a bit of a love-hate relationship with him. So I'll take the top row and make sure that he doesn't get the Kennedy, and Haz can have the platinum Jesse Hogan and the silver Fort and the silver Luke. So. Reese MB31, make sure you hit me up in Discord as well there, mate, if you're in the Discord, or just put up a trade, let me know. And I can get those 3 cards in the middle there for you. And I'll jump back to our screen there, mate, and we'll finish off this episode as well. All right. Now, looking into next week as well, we've got our Sunday Showdown. Oh, sorry, not our Sunday show. BroDown Showdown. We're going to continue the content creator edition, and we're going with the Swordplay boys this week. So we're going to do an under 22 edition BroDown Showdown against Swordplay. So we've picked our 4 players each. In the defensive line, we have Jacob Farrow for Swordplay boys, Jonathan Roscoe. We've got Josh Lindsay for ourselves, the Fantasy Bros. In the midfield, we've got Jagger Smith for Swordplay up against Levi Ashcroft for the Fantasy Bros. We've got our Brisbane allegiances there. In the forward line, they've gone Riley Sanders and we've gone a Murphy Reed. And our utility position, we've picked a Joel Frazier and they've picked a Harley Reid. So get in the comments now. Comment in. Who do you think is going to win? Is it going to be Swordplay or Fantasy Bros? Give that a comment. And while you're doing that, and Bales, while you have a think, mate, about who you're going to back in the BroDown Showdown, Haz is in the chat. G'day, Haz. He says, mate, Kennedy. You can have Kennedy. So I'll take Matt Kennedy. I'll do that for sure. I'll help you out. I know how much that will help you out in your mental health, so I'm happy to do that. So get your comments in there now. Get comments in the chat now. Who do you think is going to win? Is it going to be Swordplay or is it going to be the Fantasy Bros? We've got Arnie Booger, who's going with the Fantasy Bros. Good on you, Arnie Booger. Thank you. And we've obviously got TCB as well. He's in the chat. G'day, TCB. He's going for the Bros. And Mian as well. He's going to back in the Swordplay boys. I don't doubt you. They've got some great picks there as well. Who would you be going for yourself there, Bales?
Oh, that's a really tough matchup. I think, like, firstly, I looked at the Swordplay boys and went, I like Farrow and Jagger there, but then I do like Levi, Josh Lindsay. So I actually think this is going to be another one that actually could come down to the high score, right? That's what I think it could come down to. So I think I'll go the Fantasy Bros. I'll back you boys in for this one. I think I was actually going to put my answer in the chat there, but I can't seem to find it on YouTube. But yeah, I think that you guys will take it out just, I reckon. But it could be a high score one again, I reckon.
Yeah, and that's what Nate Daddies reckons as well. He's got that on screen there too. Could be a matter of who scores highest. I think it can. And you can sort of see the boys there. They're looking at matchups just as much as we are, as well as some good players. And I should mention too, we had a few players we couldn't pick. You weren't allowed to pick Archie Roberts. You weren't allowed to pick Will Ashcroft. You weren't allowed to pick Harry Sheasel.
And Sheasel.
Outside of that, it's sort of...
So who was it? Robert Sheasel, and who was the other one you couldn't
Will
pick?
Ashcroft.
You said?
So
Will Ashcroft, yeah. That makes sense. They're probably the top ones that most people have got in the under 22 comp. I think if I had to pick them right now, I think you go Lindsay just over Farrow, but could go the way. I've got Levi over Jagger, just with the matchup I like more for Levi. I've got Reid over Sanders, and then maybe Harley Reid over Frazier, but that one could go either way as well. So it's a good
absolutely
contest.
Sanders, he's been in great form too, as well. Just in terms of that under 22 option, being super consistent for the doggies. So he's a great selection in that forward line, Riley Sanders. So yeah, get your comment in the chat if you haven't already. See who's going to win. Again, new coaches, use that code on screen, FBAR26. Get yourself 3 9-player common packs and get involved in all the fun on GameDay Squad. And again, a big round 11 coming up next week. We're coming to you Wednesday, 27 May at 7:30 p.m. as normal. Fantasy Bros Wednesday to preview a big round 12. That's our first of our mid-season buy rounds, mate. So we're going to navigate that together. And until then, I hope you all have a fantastic time and good luck for round 11. Bales, thanks again for joining us, mate. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for me on, mate. I always love coming on there and chatting some GDS with you, mate. So always happy to come on and hopefully another episode soon as well. So have a good weekend, guys. Have a good score. Hope you guys go well in the top
Absolutely.
20.
You too, Bales. Thanks, mate. And good luck, everyone. And good night. Thank you.